Good morning, children. Hope all are safe and sound. Welcome to English class. We all love our parents. Don't you love your grandparents? Yes. Then what do they do for you? They entertain us by telling stories and by playing with us. And they give chocolate, pocket money, and so on. Whatever they get, they will share with us. Then, what do you do for them? Purchase things for them, give medicines, food, water, and take care of them very well. Children, today we are going to meet a little boy and his grandfather through the story The Wooden Cup by Domenico Vittorini. Let's know a basic information about the author Domenico Vittorini. He was born in 1892, was an Italian author and professor. He was born in Italy and later went to the USA and taught at the Temple University and the University of Pennsylvania. His most famous book is The Thread of Life. Okay, children, let's begin the story The Wooden Cup. Once upon a time, in far off Italy, there was a little boy whose name was Robertino. He loved his grandfather very much. The little boy and the old man were good friends. They spent much time together. Robertino loved to sit on his grandfather's knee and listen to the stories he told him. Grandfather was a wonderful storyteller. And oh, the stories he told! Fairy tales and exciting hunting stories, like the one in which grandfather himself had once caught an eagle. There was a strong bond of love between the two. The story happened in Italy. In the beginning of this story, the author says about a strong bond of love between two, that is, a little boy whose name was Robertino and his grandfather. Robertino loved his grandfather very much and they were good friends and they spent their time together. And he loved to sit on his grandfather's knee and listen to stories he told him. And what all stories he told him? Fairy tales and exciting hunting stories, which include grandfather himself had once caught an eagle. Thus, grandfather was a wonderful storyteller, and there was a strong bond of love between two. Grandfather had come to live with Robertino's parents when grandmother died 3 years before. Robertino's mother did not understand the loneliness of the old man. Sometimes she was very impatient with him, especially on those days when his hands shook and he would drop what he was holding. When grandmother died, grandfather had come to live with Robertino's parents 3 years before. But Robertino's mother did not like him. She did not understand the loneliness of the old man. Sometimes she was very impatient and misbehaved him, especially on those days when his hands shook and he would drop all the things which he was holding. One night at dinner, grandfather lifted his cup to drink his coffee. His poor old hands shook so much that the coffee spilled on the clean white tablecloth. The cup, falling from his hands, broke into many pieces. Robertino's mother spoke angrily to the old man. Grandfather never said a word in reply, but only looked at her with sadness in his eyes. Robertino was also very unhappy. Poor, dear grandfather. Why did the mother speak angrily to the grandfather? One night, at dinner time, grandfather lifted his cup to drink his coffee. What happened that time? His poor old hands shook so that the coffee spilled on the clean white tablecloth and suddenly the cup fell on the floor and broke into many pieces. Robertino's mother got angry and she spoke angrily to the old man. That time, what was the grandfather's reaction? He did not respond. He did not say a word in reply, but only looked at her with sadness in his eyes. And Robertino was also very unhappy and he thought, oh, poor dear grandfather. After that, grandfather had to eat all alone at a little table in the kitchen. There was sadness in his eyes when he heard about this new arrangement. There was sadness in the gentle smile he gave his grandchild. What was the new arrangement made by mother? Grandfather had to eat all alone at a little table in the kitchen. So his eating place changed from dining hall to kitchen and he had to eat alone in the kitchen. After heard about this new arrangement, there was a sadness in his eyes and was sadness in the gentle smile he gave his grandchild. As soon as Robertino finished his dinner, he would run into the kitchen to be with the old man he loved so much. And the kitchen became a beautiful land where there was no pain and no sadness. There, the old man and the little child could move about happily hand in hand. So, children, what made the kitchen a beautiful land? As soon as Robertino finished his dinner, he would run into the kitchen and played with the grandfather. And the kitchen became a beautiful land where there was no pain and no sadness. And the old man and the little child could move about happily hand in hand. Time went on. Grandfather grew older and weaker. His hands shook more and more. One night, as he sat all alone in the kitchen, his hands shook and he dropped his cup of soup. The cup broke into many pieces. Robertino's parents rushed to the kitchen and saw the split soup on the clean floor. Days passed. Grandfather grew older and weaker, and his hands now shook more and more. And one night, when he sat alone in the kitchen, his hands shook and he dropped his cup of soup. And the cup broke into many pieces. When Robertino's parents heard this sound, they rushed to the kitchen and saw that the split soup on the clean floor. Robertino was upset. His mother spoke more angrily than she had ever done before. The only thing to do, she said, was to give the old man a wooden cup. She didn't want her dishes broken just because he had become so careless. Robertino was very upset when he saw this, and his mother spoke more angrily than before, and she decided to give him a wooden cup as she did not want her dishes broken just because of his careless. Suddenly, the child went over to the fireplace where his mother had swapped the pieces of the cup. He picked the pieces carefully and began to put them together. Soon, the cup seemed to be whole. Then, he took a small piece of wood from the fireplace and began to chip it. He kept his eye on the earthen cup as though it were a model. So, what did the boy do suddenly? He went over to the fireplace and he picked the broken glass pieces carefully and began to put them together. Soon, the cup seemed to be whole, that is, it regained its shape. Then he took a small piece of wood from the fireplace and began to fix it. While fixing, he kept his eye on the earthen cup as though it were a model. "What are you making, Robertino?" asked his mother fondly. "Very lovely," she asked him. "What are you making, Robertino?" "I am making a wooden cup for you to have when you grow old," answered Robertino. Robertino's mother and father were too ashamed to look into Robertino's eyes. They took grandfather's arm and led him back to the dining room and stood near him and helped him as he ate. So, children, how did the boy teach his parents the lesson of love? He made a wooden cup for his parents when they grew old. And that time, after heard this, Robertino's mother and father were too ashamed to look into his eyes. They realized their mistake and took grandfather's arm and take him back to the dining room and helped him for doing everything. From that time, grandfather never ate all alone in the kitchen. He sat in his usual place, next to Robertino in the dining room. See, children, his happiness came back to him. From that moment, grandfather never ate alone in the kitchen. He sat in his usual place near to Robertino in the dining room. Robertino was happy again. His grandfather was loved and cared for. Robertino realized that his parents too were experiencing the true happiness that love and kindness bring. Now his grandfather was loved and cared by his parents, so Robertino became very happy and he realized that his parents too were experiencing the true happiness that our love and kindness bring. So, children, love your parents and grandparents. Be kind to them and make them happy every time.